Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Sunday. It's Daryl here. It's bright and freaking early, man. It's 3 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about Donald Trump today. And you guys, whenever I talk about this, I really think 2024, I believe the country is on a cliff and I don't see any way back off it. I really don't. I've talked about this before. If Trump gets elected, if he doesn't get elected, I just see a nightmare scenario for 2024. I want to talk about this though. I came to realize over the last couple of days that there's two types of Trump supporters, and they both support an authoritarian type Trump, like Trump's promised. Like just yesterday in the rally, once again in Iowa, he talked about the Chinese president. Xi Jinping. You guys know I have a hard time with names. And I watched what he says. He says how he's a very smart man. But listen to the context that he says this in. He says that he's a very smart man because the way he controls 1.4 billion people. And I started thinking about this. Trump looks at himself as the boss. Like when he becomes president, that he is in charge of controlling the United States and its people. That's his job. Like back when he was on The Boss or whatever his show was. When in fact the president works for us. He's an employee of the people of the United States. He is there to work for us. But that's not the way Trump views it, and that's not the way Trump supporters even want it. I believe they are in support of an authoritarian type president, and I believe there's a reason for this too. I'm going to talk about that in a second. And I think there's two types of Trump supporters. I think there's the kind that flat out realize that he's going to bring an authoritarian illiberal democracy to this country. And then there's the other people that are just that hear the word authoritarian and they think it's they don't really understand the full impact of what it's going to be. Okay, let me start here with Fox News. I go through different stories every morning. I go through like TMZ for celebrity news stories. I go through what's trending, the top 10 trending things, the top 10 viral things. And I go through general news stories. And when I go through the general news stories, there's stories from the left and stories from the right. Stories from the left like Daily Beast, Huffington Post. On the left, there's New York Post. There's Fox News. I noticed something about Fox News. And I believe this is what is influencing, what's scaring Trump supporters into supporting an authoritarian type Trump presidency. I noticed this, and check this out yourselves if you don't believe me. So I was looking at the Fox News stories, and not one of them, not one single story on all the Fox News stories, like all the different news, like I said, left and right. It's not all left, it's not all right. And there were Fox News stories mixed in. And every single Fox News story was horrific and salacious. It's like they cherry picked the worst little things that happened across the country. There was one story about a mother and what she did to her two kids. I can't even say. And how she said it was an accident. A horrific story. Then on Fox News, there's another story about a woman. They're about women being bad too, and you see where you get this chauvinistic attitude with on the right. And this other story about a teacher and what she was doing with her boy students. And it's just one story after the next about like terrible incidents that are happening across the country. And then I started to realize, this is why like people in my family, like my mom, she's terrified of like the world, we're losing our rights with Joe Biden and, there's terrible things happening every day. And I was like, and I ask my family, like, what is going on? What are these terrible things? And there's never any answer. So I started to realize that's, and it's the same people, these older people watching Fox News and these horrific cherry-picked news stories about the country being in turmoil and the culprits are always women or minorities or brown people, black people. Seriously, like there was a story about the Amazon driver, and her truck was being raided. There was a bunch of guys going in grabbing boxes, and this happens somewhat frequently. Back when I was a truck driver, we had to watch out for this. This is nothing new. When you drive into a city and you park your truck on a city neighborhood, sometimes it gets jacked. They go through the back of the truck. It's been happening for decades. It's, the 60s, I think, at least. This happened when I was a truck driver. But Fox News, the way they portray this, it's like Joe Biden and, things are just falling apart in this country and we need a leader with an iron hand. So you have these Trump supporters that think, they hear the word authoritarian and they think, well, I'm a good law-abiding, I'm part of the majority, the color of my skin and my religion, I'm doing all the right things. So this won't affect me. It'll affect all the bad people, and that's I believe that's that one type of authoritarian, they want an authoritarian Trump. Okay, then there's the other kind that actually realize what authoritarian is, and they still want it. That it's going to be the end of democracy because that Trump supporters realize that they're not going to get elected, like with the issue over the procedure or the whole trans debate. They are in the minority on these things, and we see it every time there's an election. And they realize that they're not going to get elected, and they have to kind of tilt the tables where it's not a true democracy anymore. That's the only way Republicans or really MAGA Republicans are going to get elected. So they want an authoritarian president. Now, there's a link right down below. Right-wing commentator Joey Manarino, okay? And in this, he talks about Viktor Orban and Hungary. And he's like, please, he says, Jamie Raskin said that if Trump is elected, the country will be in a liberal democracy. The definition of illiberal is restricting freedom of thought or behavior. Okay? And this guy, this right-wing commentator, the clip's right down below so you can see him say this. And he says, please bring this to America. This is what I want. We want what Viktor Orban is doing in Hungary. Please bring us this. See, so this is one of the two. These Trump supporters. Some of them, I just don't think. I think they think that this authoritarian Trump is going to bring some kind of. It's going to do away with all these Fox News stories that are scaring them. And the other type of Trump supporters are the ones that realize that it's going to be a full. We're talking about restricting freedom of thought. I'll be honest with you guys. Like this YouTube channel, if Trump becomes president, I am concerned about this YouTube channel because I'm on here and I'm giving my opinion of Donald Trump, that he's an idiot, that he's going to bring an authoritarian government. I've done hundreds of videos talking bad about Trump and what's going to happen to me. I truly believe this. I'm going to have a question for you Trump supporters in a second. So Donald Trump talks about Chinese leader Xi Jinping. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Is it Xi Jinping? It's Xi Jinping, I think. All right. So once again, in yesterday's rally, I think he idolizes dictators. He does, because he talks about how Xi is smart. He's a smart guy because the way he rules 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. And think about that. Do you want a president that thinks that's the way to rule people with an iron fist? He idolizes, when in fact the president works for us. He is our employee. He's not our boss. He's not here to control us, to control our freedom, illiberal democracy, to control our freedom of thought, our behavior. Okay, so like I said, there's two types of Trump supporters, and they're both in favor of an authoritarian Donald Trump. One, I think, just doesn't realize that they think it's going to bring some semblance of control and order to the country. And I think the other Trump supporters actually realize that what it will be, and they're in favor of that. They're in favor of our freedoms being curtailed because they think they're on the right side of everything, and it's not going to affect them, and it's just going to affect the people that don't agree with them. That's my opinion on this. Okay, let me take you to Bill Burr. UFC 295, where Bill Burr, I know who Bill Burr is now. He's a comedian. I've seen some of his stuff. When I did the video about UFC 295, I didn't know who he was. And his wife flips off the president, all right? And you can see this. I have the clip right down below. She does do this. And he's talked about this. He just talked about this yesterday, I think, Saturday. And he said, what's the big deal? Nobody got hurt. And he said, he points out the hypocrisy, because Trump supporters are saying, oh, that's so, that's, you're being so rude to the president, that's so unpatriotic and all this other stuff. When they're actually saying, the whole Brandon thing and F Joe Biden and all that, and then they turn around, they're all upset because this woman, flips off the president. So it's kind of, it's a little bit of a hypocrisy there. So I'll have that clip down below too. So this is my question. If you're a Trump supporter, are you in favor, if Trump becomes president, that he institutes some kind of law? Like, he'll probably call it patriotic, that anybody, you can't speak badly about the president or the country because it's not patriotic. It's against American ideals. You're not being a patriot, red, white, and blue. 1776, the Constitution, and that's the way they'll paint it. But people like me on this channel, people like Bo the Fifth Column, are going to be in trouble because it's going to take away our freedom of speech. We won't be able to say that Donald Trump is a pathological liar and a flaming idiot, which he is. So we'll see. That sentence right there, if it stays here for another year, might land me in trouble. Are you in favor of that? If you are a Trump supporter, do you think that's patriotic? That people shouldn't talk badly about the president or the country, even though that's exactly what they're doing right now. But that's okay because it's Donald Trump. Let me know what you think. I'll be back later with another video. I hope this made some sense. Have a good Sunday.